A recent survey of CEOs done across the nation says that about 93% of them are preparing for a recession over the next 12 to 18 months. I know recently our economists have been talking about how there's a 61% chance over the next 12 to 18 months of a recession hitting, and so we do see that a lot of CEOs across the country, huge amount are preparing in that way, and we're seeing activity happening across the board in multiple different large organizations. Walmart themselves being one of the people that have said that they are adjusting their product line and refocusing how they use their resources to put out product, and mostly they said they're hyper focusing in on necessary product within the grocery section, and so much so that they're actually dropping and selling off. They've already sold off multiple clothing lines here in 2023, but they've been doing it since 2022, end of 2022. And so this article from MoneyWise is interesting. Firmly in negative territory, 93% of CEOs say they're preparing for a recession over the next 12 to 18 months. Here's how they are shock-proofing and how you can too. Business leaders are feeling gloomy right now. A whopping 93% of CEOs surveyed in the Conference Board's measure of CEO confidence Q2 2023 report said they were preparing for a recession within the next 12 to 18 months. About 87% believe it will be brief and shallow, while 6% expect the impending recession to cut deep. The CEO confidence ticked down slightly in Q2 and remains firmly in negative territory. Dana M. Peterson, chief economist of the Conference Board, said in a press release, the survey revealed that CEO confidence dropped to a score of 42, which is below the 50 threshold, indicating business leaders are more pessimistic than optimistic about the economic outlook. Inflation, rising rates, stagnant wages, and the ongoing banking crisis may all be culminating in this economic slowdown. Here's how business leaders are preparing for the upcoming recession, and how you can too. There's been multiple large organizations moving and changing their business models in preparation for what you're doing. Walmart was one of the big ones I just mentioned. But there's a lot of, obviously we've seen a lot of layoffs in the tech industry. A lot of people have felt like those layoffs were related to the AI coming out, generative AI taking jobs. Indeed, some are. IBM has actually announced that they are adjusting towards generative AI, but I do believe that there is some maybe excuses being put out there, not so much in an effort to try and not cause a panic, not panic like to people like us, but they would try not to cause panic to investors and things like that when they're doing these massive layoffs. Obviously there's been many of them, like Mark Zuckerberg has come out and flat out said like they're making cutbacks to be more effective, and has related it to the needs to cut back on a financial basis. But large organizations like IBM has said that they're cutting thousands and thousands of jobs as it relates to generative AI taking over. But I do believe that they're embracing generative AI so quickly as a response to what they believe is coming, or what is likely to come in a recession situation. And so it is a hard thing to look at that, but it's also something that you have to see organizations do in preparation to prepare. And so the reason why I wanted to go over the article is because it's going to talk about some of the things that they're focusing on, and how you can kind of take those principles into your own life as well. But these are things that organizations have to do to survive. They have to be flexible. I recently did an article or talked about an article in regards to Gen Z, and in that video I made a point to talk about how companies would eventually have to accommodate to the cultural desires and needs of employees as Gen Z grew in the workforce, in the workplace, and the previous generations faded out more and more. Over time, you'll have more Gen Z workers, and previous generations will fade out. And I got a lot of pushback in the comment section. I had a very interesting discussion, but the person I was talking with didn't think that companies had to change, and that Gen Z had to change, and it's all related to the stereotypes, the things we've heard about Gen Z, talking about their value system. But It's in the same way. I told them companies will always have to be adaptable. And in this situation, what we're seeing here, coming into recession, companies have to be adaptable, and the adaptable ones will survive. So one of the things they highlight is the focus on liquidity. Spooked by the ongoing banking crisis, business leaders were actively reviewing the liquidity of all stakeholders. According to the Conference Board survey, 62% of CEOs were reviewing their banking relationships. Large numbers are also reviewing their firm's risk management practices and liquidity adequacy, as well as those of customers and suppliers, said Roger W. Ferguson Jr., Vice Chairman of the Business Council and Trustee of the Conference Board. Simply put, some business leaders are worried that their counterparties might run out of funds in the months ahead and are shoring up their capital reserves in preparation. Ordinary savers and investors should probably do the same, boosting cash reserves and spreading it out across government treasuries, corporate bonds, and different savings accounts could be the best way to mitigate the risk of an economic crisis. Basically saying there's a lot of money on the move. If they've got investments in certain projects, investments in certain organizations that they feel are at great risk, or even a possibility of being at great risk during the recession, they're going to move those investments, that liquidity, either out as cash on hand, or they're going to move it into something more solid. And that doesn't tend to move, like they said, government treasuries, corporate bonds, and things like that. And so this is not, so in preparation for this is the year where you want to have cash on hand, because you're going to need cash on hand. Cash on hand is king, even in our own life. We have not made some investments yet this year. Cash on hand is king, and that's what they're doing in order to stay afloat and cut back on expenses. Less than a third, 27% of CEOs surveyed said they expect to increase their capital budgets in the coming year. That's very smart. Managing expenses is a key way to protect one's finances from an economic crisis. Dozens of companies have already taken the extreme measure of laying off thousands of workers this year. That's unfortunate. Regular savers can exercise belt tightening on a small scale. Consider cutting back on vacations, big ticket purchases, and unnecessary expenses. Like we've seen, there's been thousands and thousands and thousands of layoffs over the past couple months. It's an unfortunate thing. It sucks, but everyone has to make massive cutbacks. There's always a conversation of, well, did they need to grow that big in the first place just to cut people out? And it's like, yeah, there could always be a conversation like that, and maybe in some cases that is the case, but every organization makes cutbacks, and as you go into that economic downturn, companies are hit in different ways, and they have to make it work on the budget. They have to make it work on the budget, and so things that everything that can be will be cut, because at the end of the day, a company is all about profitability and making profit. That's the only way it stays alive. That's the only way it continues to grow. And so they have to continue in that pace. Even in recession, that's the only way it's going to stay alive. They need to have cash on hand in order to do things, and the only way to have cash on hand is to make money over and above your expenses, and that's how it works. So only less than a third, 27% of CEOs surveyed said to expect to increase their capital budget. So that's a massive. That would be like what 83% are not increasing their budgets. And so I wonder how many out of that are actually decreasing their budgets and trying to cut back in serious ways. So seek out opportunities. All the doom and gloom doesn't necessarily mean you should hide your valuables under a mattress. Instead, these conditions could be favorable for contrarian investors. Warren Buffett certainly seems to be on the offensive. In the first quarter of this year, the legendary investor boosted his stake in Apple and a range of other stocks. Bad news is an investor's best friend. Buffett famously noted in a 2008 op-ed for the New York Times, lower valuations could be a good opportunity to invest in some excess cash. You could consider growth opportunities in the emerging field of artificial intelligence, income opportunities in the bond market, or dividend opportunities in the energy sector. I think that even in the field of artificial intelligence, like OpenAI, generative AI, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, OpenAI is not, you can't invest in it yet, but I think, products like that are even going to face it, because their whole model is, people paying for their subscription right now to have their product. And so we'll see if people feel the need to even do that coming into this next year, and what that looks like. And if, I think everybody will see a hit. But I thought that was an interesting overview of what you could do, looking for the right things to buy into as an opportunity, and I think over these next coming months, we're going to see organizations continue to do that. I think it's a very interesting position to have 93% say they're preparing for a recession. That's a large number, and so those business leaders of all across the nation would tell you, like, we've got to prepare and adjust our spending, and seeing how those companies shake it out. What do you guys think in the comment section below? Do you think there is a bunch of companies making that move? Do you see companies that you guys are working for in your own line of work? Are you seeing the organization make cutbacks, stop certain projects, things like that? Or what are you seeing on your end? I really would like to know. And do you think that this is legitimate? I think my other question is, what if you're in a situation where you can barely make it already? How do you make cutbacks there? I don't know if that's even possible. So please take the time to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for hanging out this long. Thank you for all the growth that we're seeing, and I will catch you guys in the next one.